What should the Pels do next? First, let's start here. Who do y'all feel are your untouchables?
I think there's 3.
Well, so let's just lay it out kind of who's right now contract situation going to be an unrestricted free agent, who's got a club option, all of that. So Valanciunas, unrestricted free agent.
Yeah.
Cody Zeller, same situation. That one obviously doesn't matter as much.
Damn it!
Club option, you got Jeremiah Robinson-Earl and Jose Alvarado. Also unrestricted is Najee Marshall. So that's another player that does have some value. So all of your big 3 are still going to be under contract. I believe BI has 1 more year on his current contract.
Yes.
Now, Zion is the player that has the longest deal left on the team.
Yeah.
So Jose obviously having a club option, $1.7 million. That's an easy one for me. They picked that up. I don't think there's any question about that. So Najee Marshall, Valanciunas, the only 2 guys that are, guys that give you minutes are going to be unrestricted free agents.
So I would have, if we were to look at kind of untouchables, and partially this is because of contracts. Obviously, I like Zion, but not just because of the deal. I like Zion because of what he proved this year. Now, it is scary in how this season ended, but I will maintain that when we've seen how good it can be, I will ride with Zion until fate or his body fails him. Like, I don't care, right? I'm not letting him go anywhere else and going to be great. I think Trey Murphy should be untouchable.
They haven't signed him to an extension yet, but yes, so they need to do that right now. But, they've got 3 players making over $30 million, per season. You got CJ, Zion, and BI. And so will they have to move one of those players, Teague? Because I agree with you. Like, he would be priority number 1,
yes,
I think, for me. To give him, something. Give him an extension.
He looks like he has the highest ceiling of maybe anybody on the team. Herb obviously has to be untouchable.
Yeah, and Herb signed that new deal. What was that, last year?
Yeah. And I don't know that I would say, like, I'm not saying this next guy has to be untouchable in the same way that the previous 2 do, but your McCollum contract is such that I don't see any great need to move CJ McCollum. He's made himself, like, the way he provides so much leadership and the way that he transformed his game to become this catch and shoot player, and what he did when BI went down at the end to try to carry you, and the fact that he finishes top 10 in 3-point percentage. Like, you don't just give up on somebody who's putting up those type of numbers or has the consistency that he has had throughout his career. So I wouldn't think about moving CJ too much unless it's like some sort of superstar deal package or something that you would put together. And then, again, I think this sounds crazy, but Jose should be untouchable. Like Jake said, Alvarado. How about this? Jose had a regular season net rating of plus 12 when he was on the court. Like, you can't exactly explain it, but the Pelicans are just better when he's on the court.
And there was times in this playoff series that, like, when he was in, him and Najee Marshall, like, it's really the only reason you were still, like, in some of these games. They were the best players on the court at some of these times.
Now, and Najee, I mean, I would love to bring back Najee as well, but I don't know that I would put him in the firmly, like, a have to.
He's your
category.
enforcer, like in hockey. Like,
he is great like that, too. I mean, he's the ultimate glue guy.
Yeah.
Your roster needs those type of grinder type of guys. Okay, next let's talk Valanciunas. And here's where my heart starts to hurt a little bit because I love Jonas Valanciunas. I often think about Jonas Valanciunas on an ancient battlefield, battle axe in hand, and how terrifying that would be. But there are some uncomfortable truths that you have to look at with Valanciunas. Now, first off, I love his toughness and availability. Started all 82 games this year, okay? That cannot be ignored. Only averaged 6 minutes in the fourth quarter this season, though.
Yeah.
Dead last among starting centers in the NBA. I didn't realize this. This is shocking. He had the worst effective field goal percentage among all centers in shots attempted between 1 and 5 feet from the rim. And you're like, okay, what about rim protection? Because you saw Chad Holmgren really kind of have his way in terms of keeping the Pelicans out of the paint in this series. New Orleans was 23rd in field goal percentage allowed at the rim this season. They were dead last season. So I don't know, unfortunately, I don't know that the Pelicans are going to be super high on bringing Jonas back. They'll likely look for center answers elsewhere.
And it's probably going to have to be in the draft.
Yeah.
Because as I sit here and I look at who would be available, now you can always, get somebody who's a 4 and make him a stretch 5. Sure. But Valanciunas had the highest salary of any center this year that's going to be a free agent next year at $15 million. But there's not a lot out there. So, like, Nicholas Claxton from Brooklyn, he made $8.6 million this year. I think he's a quality player. You've got Wagner from Orlando. I think he had a pretty good year this year. He's at $8 million, but he has a club option that I would assume they're going to pick up that option. Then you get into the Kevin Love, Mason Plumlee, Andre Drummond, JaVale McGee, Tristan Thompson, that Cody Zeller.
I would have loved a lot of those names at one time.
Yeah, like 7 years ago, have been great. DeAndre Jordan is also on this list. Christian Wood, who's been a Pelican before. So I don't know what the market for center is going. Now, Larry Nance still has another year on his deal. Do you feel good about Larry Nance being that guy and picking up somebody to be in his role? I don't know about that.
I don't know that I feel good as Larry being the frontline guy. I think Larry's a part of this team will remain. So this brings us to the other way, Jake, to potentially solve that void at center, and that could be through a BI trade. And now we have to talk about Brandon Ingram because he remains curious and just what's the word I'm looking for? Divisive. A bit controversial in how you should feel about him. And it's because I don't even know how I feel about him myself. There have been times, I have a Brandon Ingram jersey. There's been times I've been absolutely in love with him. I can think of some of the runs that he's had, making an all-star team in a Pelicans uniform. He's still only 26 years old. Over the past 5 years, he's averaged at least 20 points, 4 boards, 4 assists a game. He shot 53% from 2 this year, which is one of the best rates in the entire NBA. But in the past 3 years, he's played in 55 games, 45 games, and 64 games. In fact, he's missed 154 games since 16-17. In this first round, he averaged 16 points. He only shot 41% from the field. And and then maybe most damningly, right? The big three, you could say, contract-wise. So the Pelicans, the big three are CJ, BI, and Zion. Now, admittedly, they did not get a ton of time together, but Andrew Lopez put some numbers when they were on the field of this court together. The Pelicans had a -3 net rating with those three sharing the court, which is actually worse than They had an offensive efficiency of 111.2, which, again, to give you context or like what that number means, that was lower than the 24th place Raptors. So you're just not actually that good when those three are on the court together. And you can say, oh, well, they never got too much time on task because everybody's always hurt, and that's fair. But that's also why I don't know that you continue with BI. And I say with Zion, like I would hate it if he would go somewhere else and find that success. If you get rid of Ingram and he goes on to be awesome, for whatever reason, I actually would not feel that same pain. It would more be like, I'm surprised, but good on you and best of luck, because he just doesn't look like it just does. It didn't feel at the end of the year like he really fits this team.
I don't know what his value is going to be either, because he's coming off a bad stretch with USA basketball and with the Pelicans.
It's true.
So, like, he is not in his best form right now. He's still young, to your point, but I don't know what you're going to be able to go out there with 1 year left on his contract. It's a big number. It's over $30 million. What are you realistically going to be able to get? And this team has still draft picks. Like, they still are okay in that realm. We know that from different trades that they've done. Like, they still have some of that available.
Yeah.
And lottery picks haven't really worked out for the Pelicans anyways. Like, think about their players and how they've acquired those players. You know, they've had some nice, like Dyson Daniels and Jackson Hayes and Lewis, who you traded
Kyra Lewis
to the Raptors.
Was Trey Murphy a lottery pick?
He's on the edge.
Was he like 11 or something?
Yeah, he was. No, he was. So that's the one. But I'm thinking about, like, you start to look at Hawkins from this year. You got him at what, 14?
Yeah.
Look, that's a lot of draft picks that are on the end of the bench, are come in for 10 minutes or in Birmingham.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it's somewhat to be expected in the NBA. And really, look, well, that is the thing, though. I do like, for whatever it's worth, I do like the Pelicans' later round scouting. I mean, getting Herb and Jose and Dyson Daniels, like, that. I would also, I mean, I don't know that Daniels, you go like full untouchable, but he's a player that I think is going to be a very big piece of this franchise moving forward. What do y'all think, though? Am I wrong? Are we being slaves to the moment saying that BI doesn't fit here?
No, I mean, when you asked earlier, I said I think there are 3 untouchables. It would be Zion, Herb, and Trey Murphy. I mean, outside of that, no. I mean, because, look, you wanted BI to step up in the series. You were like, okay, this is your team now without Zion. And it never did. And earlier you were like, hey, he's coming off of an injury. Let him get back into the form of things. But it was all series long. I mean, he was bad all series. Really, Trey Murphy was your best player in this series.
Yeah. And he kind of feels like, if you're asking me, okay, who do I want to lean into and try to invest in the future, and let's see if we can maximize him, Trey's skill set just seems like BI kind of came up in an age that was just different, where that Kevin Durant, Slim Reaper, mid-range, just rise up above you, dagger 2 was still relevant. Now that's a bad shot. Trey Murphy has been molded in the age of threes and layups.
Yeah.
And he's got the perfect body for it. And he's so long, and he plays better defense. Again, Jake, it's almost like see what you can get value-wise, but honestly, it's almost more than anything about getting the contract off the books, about not having to pay him another max extension and then saving that money to pay some of these other pieces down the road.